Buy-to-lets are the foundation and the cornerstone of the property investment world, and most people get confused by it, whether it's for beginners, whether it's for intermediates or advanced. And the truth is, it's the foundation of everything we do in property investment. So in this video, I'm going to be covering all the basics that you need to understand and the key steps to maximizing your profits in 2024 for your property investment journey. Now, here is what you may not know. Have you ever heard of BRR? Buy, refurbish, refinance, which is the savvy way of doing buy-to-let. The theory is that you buy a property with cash or bridging finance that needs renovation, but the key is that you buy the property at a discount because it needs some renovation, some refurb. And then you refurbish the property and therefore increase the value of the property, and then you refinance the property with the means to get a mortgage on that property. But here's the golden nugget. You get the mortgage at the higher value, and then you pull out typically 75% of that value, which will then give you some of your money back. Now, the key to mastering this strategy is to ensure that you are buying at the right price, a terminology known as BMV, below market value, which gives you a lot more wiggle room when you then add value, and then when the mortgage company come out to value the property, it is substantially higher in value than what you've paid for it, and you're more likely to then pull more of your money out. You may have heard of investors talking about pulling all of their money out. The question is this possible? Well, yes, it is. I've done it. But banking on pulling all of your money out every single time is not realistic. So not forgetting that we are then going to put a tenant into that property as well, for which they are going to pay rent, which will cover the mortgage payments and should make you some profit. So let's go into more detail with it. The most important fundamental you need to understand is using other people's money. The key to successful property investing is to use other people's money. It doesn't have to be your money. So if you sat there right now thinking, I ain't got any money, then you need to tweak this. Because I can remember someone sitting there saying the same thing to me 7 years ago and thinking, it's all right for you. And then I actually did everything they told me and completely changed my life. I have now raised millions of pounds from investors and lenders. So the question you might be asking is, why property over other assets? Well, property is the most appreciating asset on the planet. The question is, where else can you leverage 75%? So let's talk about leverage. In order to play this game, you need to learn to utilize other people's money, and you need to learn to leverage. Savvy property investors use the bank's money to borrow typically 75% loan to value. What I mean by loan to value is how much the bank will give, or a lender will give, in comparison to the value of the property. Now, they say it's loan to value, but actually 99% of the time it's loan to purchase price. And I'll link back to this hopefully a little bit later in the video, and it'll all start to make sense, so be sure to watch until the end. Let's say you've got a £100,000 property, you've borrowed 75 grand of that, and you've put in 25k, plus some fees. So you haven't had to save up £100,000 to buy a property, you've had to save up the deposit. This could create some roadblocks for some of you who are watching, but actually there is a strategy called deal packaging that I use to create massive cash flow. This is what I do. I then use that cash flow for my deposits to build my portfolio, my wealth, and my passive income. That's how I do it. If you want to learn more about deal packaging as a strategy, then you need to join me on my Deal Packaging Discovery Day. You can find out more information about my Discovery Day at my website, katiewilsonproperty.com, and don't forget it's Katy. Now, let's touch on risk. Let's talk about the risk, because we're talking about leverage here, which is borrowing money, a lot of money. What you don't want to do is over leverage. People at the beginning of their journey, they get obsessed with all money out deals. I want to buy it, refurbish, refinance it at the highest value possible and pull all of my money out. I understand it. At the start, you want to build your portfolio, you want to build your wealth, you want to build your passive income as quickly as possible. But actually, what you should be focusing on is the return on cash. This is a mistake so many investors made, especially in the crash of 2008 and pre-2008. What they did was they over-leveraged. They over-leveraged their portfolios. People were getting 100% lending. Some people were even getting 110% lending, where you'd buy the property and you get more than the purchase price, so you can also pay for your refurbishments. This is called overexposure. And to be honest, you can't get products like that anymore. Well, not that I've seen anyway. So because you have to think, the reason why mortgage lending is so cheap, and some of you may debate this at the moment with mortgage rates being where they are, but all in all, it's cheap. It's cheap because it's asset backed. So if I lend you 75 grand for your £100,000 house and then you stop paying, I can repossess that property. That's a pretty good safe investment until you over leverage. So leverage is a fundamental part of building a successful property portfolio, but you need to be careful. There's something else called coverage. So when it comes to a mortgage, you're going to come across something called rental coverage. Now, when you are getting a buy-to-let mortgage, typically you need to have a salary. If it's your first one, usually you'll need at least 25k per annum, which is pretty much going to open up the whole market of mortgage products available to you. Now, they're not just basing it on the decision entirely on your income, your affordability, like they would with a residential mortgage. So what they're actually going to look at is, does it make money? And the way that they do that is something called stress testing. So where the lender will test the profitability of the property you intend to buy based on a higher interest rate. So it doesn't mean that you're paying the higher interest rate. It means you want to ensure that it still cash flows at a higher interest rate, which gives you much more wiggle room for any interest rate increases and protects the lender. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to have to repossess your property. What should you be looking for your first investment? You need 3 fundamental things to look out for. The first is BMV. So let's say you've got a house worth £100,000 and you agreed to buy it for £95,000. You've got the property at £5,000 below market value. Now, obviously we want more than that, but I don't want to go to extreme examples. Typically we get around 15 to 20% below market value, but it does change depending on the climate. So let me give you an example. Let's say we purchase a property for £100,000, worth £100,000, but we're going to purchase it for £70,000, which is a great deal. Then number 2, we're going to add value. What we're going to do now is refurbish the property and add value. Now, there's this theory going around that for every £1 you spend, you add £3 of value. And to be honest, that's a load of bollocks. In my opinion, it's just my opinion. Number 3, we're then going to refinance that property. We're going to be able to refinance the property at a higher value. For those that don't know what refinancing is, once you've added value and completed your refurb, you've now increased the value of the property. What you then do is apply for a refinance. The lender then will come out, revalue the property based on the value that you've added. Let's say the property gets revalued at £120,000. So the mortgage company are now going to lend you 75% of that 120 grand, which is 90 grand. Cool. So is now the right time to buy property? And I'm going to make this really simple for you. You don't wait to buy property. You buy property and wait. Ultimately, I don't care if there's a little dip in the market. I plan to hold till I drop dead. So what I do know is that prices will recover. So although appreciation is important, we can leverage this by refinancing. I'm focused on the long-term game here. Plus, don't forget, I'm getting rent from these properties as well. So don't get me wrong, this is not a massive amount just from 1 or 2 properties, but you can build it over time. Now let's talk about rental profits. The annual mortgage payments for a £90,000 mortgage at a rate of say 6% would be £5,400. So then dividing the annual mortgage payments by 12, the monthly mortgage payments come to £450. So your monthly profit after the monthly mortgage from the gross rent of £800, your monthly profit will be 350 quid. You see how I got to that conclusion? Which is pretty good going in this climate. Now, the secret is something called capital growth. So after you're done with your refinance, you now have some equity in the property you've purchased. So in this example, the property is worth 120 grand now, but you owe the bank 90. That means you've got 30 grand in equity, which is great, but don't forget it's called equity. It's not cash in the bank, but it's pretty good. So From your first property, you're going to have £30,000 in equity, plus you're going to get £4,200 in rent over the year. So you've made £34,200 from your first property. Now, people also say that property prices double every 10 years, and I also think that's a load of bollocks. It's inconsistent. But what I can say and what I have seen is that property does appreciate. So in our area, it appreciates approximately 5% a year. That means in 5 years' time, the property that you bought for 70 grand in this example is now worth 153 grand-ish. And that's what we do. We find investments like this for our investors. We're getting around 5% growth per year. So this property, this is how it would look. Year 1, be worth 126 grand. Year 3, 138 grand. Year 5, 153 grand. Year 10, 195 grand. And that's not even taking into account the rent and the fact that rents go up over time. How cool is that? And that's just one property. So to summarise, the best way to do buy-to-let is to focus on your 3 points: below market value, refurbish, refinance, with your bonuses of leverage, learning to work with other people's money, understanding capital appreciation, and don't forget rental and the increases for the rent. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment. I'll make sure I reply to every single one of your questions you've got around buy-to-lets or property investment. I'll get those answered. And if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, make sure to smash that subscribe button and I will see you in the next video. If you want to learn more about buy-to-let, then please visit my website at katywilsonproperty.com, and that's Katy, and I will see you in the next video.